Welcome back. This is day 6 of your 10 days to business boundaries. And today is another day of defining your boundaries. And today we're talking about contracts. Contracts really are just another tool to define boundaries. And when I say contracts, I mean both actual legally binding contracts as well as other kinds of agreements and rules and statements and just other kinds of writings that may or may not be legally binding. The idea here is that I want to get across the concept that contracts are not something you do just because I'm telling you as a lawyer or just because you've read that you're supposed to do contracts in a book, or people on the internet tell you that real businesses have contracts, or your, business coach or consultant, or someone told you that's what you're supposed to do. Or you want to win a lawsuit if you need to sue somebody. That's not the reason to do a contract. The point of having a contract is because it is a way to set a boundary. It is a way to clearly define expectations of what I'm going to do and what you're going to do in a relationship. Because here's the kind of magical thing about a contract. A contract freezes time. It's really hard to remember what we agreed. It's really hard to remember what happened yesterday. I mean, what did you have for breakfast yesterday? Well, unless you are like me and you're a weirdo who eats the exact same thing for breakfast every day, you may not remember what you had for breakfast yesterday. So it can be really hard to remember what we agreed to 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 5 years ago, especially the exact details. And even if we go back to a series of emails that we are like piecing together in our Gmail account, we may not be able to even figure out what we both agreed to because there's no one email that actually says what we both agreed to. Your email says one thing, my email says another thing. There's no one email that says the same thing, right? So the idea of a contract is to have one frozen moment in time, one PDF or one piece of paper that both of us have signed either electronically or with a pen that has a date on it. It says, here is what we agreed. Here's what we're expecting you to do, what we're expecting me to do. Here are the boundaries of this relationship. And that way it's actually possible for us to honor this agreement. And it makes it much more likely that we're going to have a reduction of drama, and it's going to be much more likely that we're going to be able to comply to the terms of our agreement because we actually know what the agreement is. Now, logistically speaking, how this works in real life depends upon the nature of the relationship and the kind of transaction you're having. So if you have a one-on-one client and we're talking about a half decent amount of money, you're actually going to be doing a negotiated contract that may be drafted by a lawyer. It might even be custom drafted by a lawyer if we're talking about a $50,000 agreement, right? Or if we're talking about a contract for, let's say, life coaching, you may have a lawyer draft a template and then you use that same contract with all of your clients, but you have them sign it with a pen or you have them sign it online using Right Signature or using EchoSign or one of the different online signing kind of agreements that you can use. And by the way, those are just as legally binding as signing with a pen. It's a great thing to use. So with one-on-one kind of relationships, also with partnership agreements, with vendor contracts, with independent contractor agreements, with joint venture relationships, totally makes sense to negotiate those. Sometimes you may have a lawyer draft it because it's enough money on the line, or you can draft a template it makes sense to invest in a lawyer doing that for you. And sometimes you may decide to just handle it yourself, especially if it's early on in the relationship, it's not a lot of money at stake, but it's something to actually negotiate and get in writing. If we're talking about something that's a transaction that's done online, where people are coming on your website and they're buying an ebook, well, obviously they're not going to, download a written contract and sign it with a pen and fax it to you to buy an ebook. So then it's a different kind of contract they're going to be agreeing to. They're going to be having terms and conditions on your website. Same kind of thing if you have employees who work for you in your business. You may not have an employee contract. So in some businesses, some industries you do. You may also have them sign an NDA or confidentiality agreement. Or you may decide in your industry that it makes sense to just have an employment handbook, a set of rules that you have your employees comply with in your business. There's those different things that make sense depending upon the kind of relationship it is, the kind of transaction it is. But the important thing to always keep in mind is you want to have those expectations and those boundaries as clearly disclosed as possible, so people know what they need to comply with, so they know what the expectations are, to make it possible for them to actually do what you want them to do, and for you to actually do what they want you to do. One important thing to remember about contracts is they don't need to be scary. They don't need to have tons of legalese. They don't need to be incredibly formal to be binding. They don't need to have a bunch of numbers along the edge. Those are a lot about style and a lot about the culture of the particular industry that you're in, more than about making it legally binding. So you can have a contract that is in congruence with your personality, with your business, with the rest of your marketing, with what's going to be acceptable to your particular clientele. So it may make sense for your particular clients to make it more formal if they're big corporations, if they're government entities, or it may make sense for your particular clients to make your contracts very informal, very casual, but still as legally binding as the super formal contracts. Neither is better or worse, as long as they have all the definitions of your boundaries that are important to you. The same expectations, the same boundaries can be defined in very casual ways or in very formal ways. So your assignment today is to just really start making a list of the different kinds of agreements you may need in your business, or agreements you may need to revise or revisit in your business. This is not something that you're going to probably handle one day. This is a project that is long-term and ongoing, because you're going to probably revise them as time goes on and as your business grows and changes and adapts. So there's a couple areas where I really recommend that you focus, that are the highest priority for your business, because they're the areas where there's the greatest risk of things going wonky and you having high drama. The number one area that I recommend you focus on are if you have co-owners, business partners. If you have co-owners, business partners in your business, you have to have written agreements with them. That is the number one place where things can go wonky. You may already have operating agreement, bylaws, partnership agreements. You want to definitely make sure you get all those agreements in writing, and those should be updated and revisited on a regular basis as your relationship evolves and as you bring in more people into that business, more owners into the business. The second place we want to make sure that you have agreements are anytime you have people who like independent contractors, vendors, people like that, who are creating things for your business. that involve intellectual property. So we're talking about copyrights, trademarkable kinds of things. Logos, websites, photographs, videos, blog posts, things like that. When people are creating creative works for your business, you want to make sure that you actually have rights over that stuff. And you don't necessarily automatically have the rights that you think you do. People think that it's works for hire. A lot of times it's not. You think it is, it's not. It's very rare that it's automatically works for hire. And unless they're your employee, it doesn't belong to you just because you pay for it. So you want to make sure that's clearly defined in a writing. It has to be in writing. It would have to be in writing to be works for hire anyway. So you want to make sure that that's in a contract and you know exactly what you're getting. The third area where you want to make sure that you have contracts that are in writing are really when you have clients or customers that you're not personally vetting. So where this comes up is, a lot of times when people start out in a business and they're providing a service, they start out with providing a service one-on-one, and they're personally vetting all their clients or customers, and it's a very low drama because you're personally selecting all these people you're doing the consulting work for or the life coaching for, or who are testing out your products. And as such, low drama because you're hand selecting everyone and you're providing all the customer service. As your business grows, that changes at a certain point. And either you're not providing all the services or you're not hand selecting everybody anymore. And at that point, then you're going to need contracts to provide, to set those boundaries for you because you're not going to be setting them yourself. You're probably going to have staff or a website or something that's going to be bringing those people in. So you're going to need everything to be provided in writing because you're not going to be handling it yourself. So those are three areas I want you to focus on as you're kind of going through your business, looking for places where you need contracts. I mean, there's a gazillion other places where you may need them, but those are the highest risk areas that I recommend you focus on when you're thinking about places where you may want to use contracts as a tool for setting and enforcing boundaries in your business. So next time, tomorrow, on day 7, we're going to move on to the third part of 10 days, which is enforcing boundaries in your business. So I'll see you guys then. Bye.